Good morning. Well, I was about to go to bed, and I took a glimpse at this phone here, and saw a video about Edward P.F. Edward P.F. I forget his name. Anyway, he sent me some stuff in the mail. I was kind of baffled, really, to tell you the truth, because this gap theory thing is still going on out there. And they said that in its title is Psalm 104, something that is better than Peter 3:5 concerning gap theory. Like, okay. So anyway, let me read this again here for you. Psalm 104, who maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flaming fire, who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. Okay? Thou coverest it with the deep as with a garment. Thou waters stood above the mountains. At thy rebuke they fled, and the voice of thy thunder hasted away. What really does that have to do with the pre-Noahic flood? The flood of Noah's time. What does that flood have to do with Noah's flood? Absolutely nothing, because it's not there. At thy rebuke, the waters fled. Thing some people are not considering, especially when you get down to, I'm going to go to 2 Peter here. Thing that some people might not be considering is, I heard Edward say something other about the waters were coming over the top of the mountain, so therefore there had to have been their earth that was destroyed before the Adamic race, Adam. But there's a problem here, Edward. And there's a problem here, hold fast that word, that you're not looking at. Okay? Let me get to 2 Peter here. Alright. Well, just a second. 2 Peter. Now, 2 Peter, chapter 2, verse 4 and 5, said, For if God spare not the angels that sin, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. Notice that it says the flood. Right? It was a flood because waters came up and flooded. Okay? Now, if it was a pre-Adamic earth, it would say something about the second flood or another flood, I think. Okay? So let's go to chapter 3 of Peter. See what it says here. It says, and saying, there, where is the promise? I'm sorry, that's chapter 4, verse 4. Verse 3, knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lust. Went to verse 4. And saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. Okay? Not the pre-Adamic race, but the beginning of creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of that by the word of God the heavens were of old. That does not mean a heaven passed away. They were of old. They still are of old. They have existed since the first day, since creation. Okay, that does not mean that there was a heaven before this heaven. Okay? And the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, Noah's world, being overflowed with water, perished. It doesn't allude in a Genesis gap that there was a overflow, that there was a flood. What it does tell you in the Genesis gap, as darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. It doesn't say anything about a flood or a mountain standing out of the water and in the water. Now, whenever Peter says this, now let's just take it like this, making an illustration. That's what Peter's saying here in verse 5. I'll draw something here, then I'll let you see it. Okay? Say we got a mountain here. Alright, we got a mountain here. It's standing in the water and it's standing out of the water. Alright, let me make sure. It says 2 Peter 3 and 6. Actually, put a little dot there. This is 2 Peter 3 and 6 right here. It's in and it's out. Okay? That has nothing to do with the pre-Adamic, supposed pre-Adamic flood. Okay? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, let's go back to 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4 and 5. And it says, and spare not the world, the old world. Again, that's Noah's world. Okay? But like I said, but save Noah, the 8th person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. Again, Noah's world. Now, let me show you, if I may. I'm going to try to illustrate as best I can. Well, you gotten it so far, I hope. In the water, out of the water. The water's here. This is after the fact that the earth was formed. Okay? Watch my previous video and I talk about that. It took quite a while to edit. Tell you what. Okay, so in Genesis chapter 1, I'm trying to get this done in one hand. You got Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 through 3. And between 1 and 2, you think there's a gap. Right? Well, really look again. It says and there was darkness, the deep, well, actually, let me get to it here. Okay, here we go again. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The heaven and the earth, which was of old, which was what Peter was talking about. And it didn't give any description what happened, or whether the heaven changed, or whether the world changed. The land standing in the water, the land standing out of the water. Right? Okay, so now it says, and the earth was without form and void. So how could there be a mountain in the water, as you're trying to describe, RPF, in the water and out of the water? Because the earth wasn't formed. It was like a baby in the mother's womb. It has not yet become an embryo, a zygote, whatever, a human form. It's just a cell. So basically, is what you got is this. You got this dark mass in the face of the deep, and it's dark all the way around. And evidently, if we count this for water, and in verse 2, verse 3, it says, I said verse 3, but I meant verse 2. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. The Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So you got the face of the deep here, and you got the face of the water here. Okay? Face of the water here and face of the deep there. So what does that kind of tell you? Something that's covered in water and is deep. And is without form and is void. Okay? So if it doesn't have any form, then it doesn't look like a mountain. Then it's not hard. Then it's not solid. Okay? The earth was not yet formed. Alright? Verse 3, God says, what does he say in verse 3? Let there be light. And keep remembering, God was moving upon the face of the waters, forming the earth. And he said, let there be light. Something fused together, something condensed together when that light came. I'm not saying it was a light of the sun or whatever, but something condensed. God's own glory caused something to happen. Okay? So this argument of saying the mountains were in the water, down the water, is kind of referring to 2 Peter chapter 2 and 2 Peter chapter 5, and then what was it, Psalm 104:5. That doesn't do the gap any credence whatsoever. I'm not saying that to be mean or ugly. I'm just kind of stating what's true here, because it doesn't do any kind of justice whatsoever. I want to know why you would believe that. I want to know what is the point of believing that. Why would you believe it? Because I also want to add too, if you believe that, then you must. If there was I heard somebody, was it Stephen or somebody said that the earth was for angels. But okay, the angels came later, and they went into the women, the daughters of men. They were the sons of God who went into the daughters of men. These were rebellious, fallen angels. They weren't the angels, I don't believe, who served God faithfully, like Michael and Gabriel. They were those who were cast out. They were on the earth, yeah, because they were cast out. So how could it be there on the earth if the pre-Adamic race, they were evidently destroyed? So how could they be there to cohabitate with the women and then bring about Nephilim, or some call Nephilim, or giants upon the face of the earth? So you got to think about that. So there was a pre-Adamic race, and the earth was destroyed into a formless, without a form and a void state, and yet these things that were there before, these angels or whatever, were supposed to be destroyed, and yet they're not, because they're cohabitating, they're going into the daughters of men. How does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. So you have it's no ground to stand on there, because it's without form and it's void. The argument of the gap theory. But again, it's just invalid, of no use, the gap theory, because you have to have, if you have a pre-Adamic race, and it's like I told some other guys, you had to have, in order to have a race, you have to have, what? Women and men. Oh! Wow. In order to have a race of people, or a group of people, to cohabitate and bring about more people, you had to have women and men. There are no women angels. All angels are males. Because it says again, even in Job 1 and 2, the sons of God came, and everything, and Satan was among them. So we know now that sons of angels, that means sons of God are angels, or fallen angels in this case, and that even the sons of God who were not fallen, who were still there, who served God faithfully, were still there. So the thing with the gap theory holds no water, because pre-Adamic race had male and female. And what the gap theory is concluding is that there was these angels and they were wiped out somehow or another on this pre-Adamic earth, and then there was darkness upon the face of the deep. And after that, into the gap theory, and then it was without form and void. Okay, so you got like this liquidy type mass or something, and God moved upon the face of the waters, which is what this is. I should have marked the blue waters here. This is the darkness, the face of the deep here. It's waters here, the face of the waters. God's Spirit moved upon it, and then He said, "Let there be light." Something happened here. Okay? And then it began the first day. The first day was at the beginning. It wasn't at the pre-Adamic race. It had nothing to do with the angels. To conclude, to assume that there was a pre-Adamic race, to conclude, or to assume that there was some thing that was here before the earth that we're on now, and the one that flooded over in Noah's time. I don't mean to sound mean, but it's crazy. That's a little ridiculous. And I don't mean to offend nobody, but that's a bit ridiculous. In order to have your theory, you had to have a male and female to validate that race. And you have to have a reason why the angels were here to begin with. And I know I said they were here on the earth at the time of Adam and Eve. Yeah, evidently. But you don't know whether they rebelled against the Lord, God, before the creation of the earth, or during or at the creation of the earth. The beginning, I'm saying. You don't know that. There's no time. Because you know what? Time wasn't even invented until the beginning, the first day. So you can't conclude that back before the earth there was a part, an infinity past, that the angels, whoever they were that rebelled, came down on a pre-Adamic earth, because it doesn't say that even. It doesn't say it in the Bible. There's no clue. There's no hint. So whatever you're reading in 2 Peter chapter 2 or 3, what you read in Psalm 104, that does not give any kind of proof of a gap. I mean, you can think there is all you want, but there's no proof there, for me at least. I mean, anyway, read it and ask the Holy Spirit to help you understand. Don't just conclude or assume that there's a gap theory just because you don't understand something. Just because you see the heavens of old, the things which were of old, that does not mean that they got old and they passed away and God made new heavens along with another earth, and then all of a sudden makes man. Then you talk about the mountain standing out of the water and in the water, which 2 Peter talks about. That's after the fact. That's after, probably likely when the earth was being created. Actually, I think it was. Because some of the water went down, as it said, and locked in chambers, as it said, and some of the water stayed above, in which exposed the land. And whenever the flood happened, the waters came up, and the waters that were above, that parted during the creation, came back down. The windows of heaven were open during the flood. Read it as it is. Read it literally until it's time to not take it literally. So again, no offense to anyone, but read the Word. Okay? Read the Word and ask the Lord to help you understand. See you later.